Then let's go to session 3 and let Tim Keller.
What thing, if you lost it, could make you lose your will to live? What thing, if you lost it, would make all meaning and significance and hope disappear from your life? Whatever that thing is, the Bible calls it an idol. An idol is anything more fundamental than God to your happiness, meaning in life, or identity. Idolatry is the inordinate desire for anything, even good things, especially good things. And therefore, anything can be an idol, even good things such as career or family or achievement or some good political cause or physical attractiveness or romance or human approval or financial security or anything. So, how do you spot the symptoms of idolatry in your life? Alfred Adler, a very prominent psychologist, said it's very hard to find out what you're really living for just by asking that question. Because then you'll answer, I'm living for my family, or I'm living for God, or I'm living for other people. But Adler says, if you want to know what you're really living for, look at your nightmares. What is your worst nightmare? What thing, if it were absent, might take away your very desire to live? That is your idol. Because anything were removed that would take away your very desire to want to even go on with life, that's your actual deity. That's the real thing that justifies your life, that for you gives your life worth and value. And it may be a good thing, but if it's an ultimate thing, and it's not God, it's an idol. So for example, imagine that you were engaged. And if you're engaged, then that relationship will bring great meaning in your life. Of course it will. And then, imagine you broke up. Something happened and you broke up. And of course there'll be tremendous grief, because if it was a good relationship, if it was a good thing, then to lose it will be very hard. But if you made that person an ultimate thing, if the love of that person was the very reason you got up in the morning, was the very reason that you even thought there was anything good about you at all, if you turned a good thing into an ultimate thing and you lose that, it won't just be hard, you will be completely devastated. Romans chapter 1, verse 18 to 25 is the classic New Testament text that explains the nature and the power of idolatry. In that passage, Paul shows that all the breakdowns of life, whether spiritual or psychological or social or cultural, they all come because we've worshipped and served created things rather than the Creator. Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 25 puts it like this: "It's no use. I love foreign gods, and I must go after them." That's the voice and language of Israel. And Jeremiah uses it to get across the fact that once we've come to believe that something will really make us happy, then we can't help ourselves. We must go after our gods. They completely capture our heart. As Psalm 106 puts it, they worshiped their idols, which became a snare to them. The language of the prophet Ezekiel is even stronger. This is chapter 6, verse 9. "This is what the sovereign Lord says. I have been grieved by their adulterous hearts, which have turned away from me, and by their eyes, which have lusted after their idols." In psychological terms, an idol is the thing you get your identity from. In theological terms, and this is the way the Bible puts it, an idol is the thing you're turning to for your righteousness. Martin Luther points out that the first commandment, "You shall have no other gods before me," is the first commandment because all the other commandments are based on it. Luther says You never break one of the other commandments unless you first break the first commandment. So, let's take the 9th commandment. Don't lie. Why do you lie? Well, you say, because I'm a sinner. Yes, but why do you lie in this particular instance and not that particular instance? Luther says, you're lying because underneath there is something more important to you than Jesus Christ at that moment. There's human approval, or money, or power, or comfort, or something at stake that is so important to you, you're willing to break the law of God in order to get it. In other words, you lie because there's an idol. There's something else that's your real salvation, something else more important to you than Jesus Christ at that moment. And therefore, Luther says, under every behavioral sin is the sin of idolatry. And under every act of idolatry is a disbelief in the gospel. So at the root of all sin is the failure to take the gospel deep into the furthest reaches of your heart. So the gospel, which is good news, that we're not saved because of what we have done, but by what Jesus has done. The gospel is not an elementary principle that we grasp when we're first saved, and then we go on to more advanced biblical principles. No. We always take the gospel with us when we go on. Because our ongoing disobedience, our failure to change, our lack of spiritual growth is always rooted in our unwillingness and our inability to believe and rejoice in our righteousness in Christ. And you will never change unless you come to find the particular and characteristic ways your heart resists the gospel and continues the self-salvation project through idolatry. Unless you constantly apply the gospel to the roots of your heart so that the idols of your heart are weakened more and more, you will never change. Your life will never change because your heart has not been changed. In his famous sermon, The Expulsive Power of a New Affection, Thomas Chalmers says, no one ever changed a habit just by trying. He says nobody changes fear or racial prejudice just by trying, just by saying, oh, I shouldn't be like that. So Chalmers writes, the heart is so constituted that the only way to dispossess it of an old affection is by the expulsive power of a new one. What you need to drive out an old passion is a new passion, a greater passion. What you need is an overmastering positive passion. For example, in Genesis 29, Jacob is told he has to work for Laban 7 years in order to marry Rachel, Laban's daughter. That's a long time to work for, especially a boss like Laban. But Jacob does it. And you know why? The text says Rachel was so beautiful in his eyes, and he loved her so much that it seemed like no time at all. He had an overmastering positive passion, and so he was able to do the work. 7 years, no problem. Here's another example. Take two guys and put them into 2 rooms right next to each other. Give them the very same job. Tell both of them you're going to make widgets. A widget is put this on that, put this on that. Very, very tedious. And tell them they're both going to work for 12 months, 1 year, but tell the man in this room he's going to make $10,000 this year. But tell the guy in this room he's going to make $1 billion this year. And I can guarantee you, the man in this room will get very bored very fast. But the man in this room will come to work every day with a song in his heart. Why? What's the difference? It's the same job, the same circumstances. But the man in this room has got an overmastering positive passion. He's excited about his future. He's thrilled by what's coming.